On this edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher.
I had an opportunity to play against and then later be involved in the evaluation and the signing of Kurt Warner.
You went on a recruiting visit, I believe, to Fresno State. What happened on that visit, Lugs?
There wouldn't have been a GM or a coach in that draft that would have said Peyton Manning was more physically gifted than Ryan Leaf.
It's the champagne of beers.
It is the champagne of beers. It says it right there on the label. If you lined up 100 professional athletes and you covered up all of their faces, Marshall Faulk would be the last person that you would pick out.
The greatest sports moments happen in seconds, but the stories behind them are timeless. Dive into the mind of the icons who live those moments. No filters, just authentic conversations about the moments that define careers. I'm Justin Kutcher, and this is the Just in Time podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher. I'm joined now by my original football analyst. This goes all the way back to high school days at ESPN. He's now a big-time ESPN college football analyst, but to me, he'll always be known as the DNR, Director of National Recruiting, Tom Luginbill. Lugs, awesome to have you. Awesome to reconnect. How are you?
I'm good, man. You see this shirt? I wore it season. I wore it.
It's the champagne of beers.
It is the champagne of beers. It says it right there on the label. And I wore it because when I was coming on with you today, I was thinking about when we were on the road in all those tiny little towns, broadcasting a high school game here or a midweek MAC game or Sunbelt game. And then we'd somehow always, for whatever reason, find an Applebee's or a Chili's. And they would always have the champagne of beers. We would always order them. So I had to wear this in honor of the last 15 years.
And honestly, you're going to make Bill Garrity and Ed Spida, our spotter and statistician, so proud right now because every time you guys would go to order, you'd see it say Miller High Life, and without hesitation, champagne of beers. Just let's go. Come on.
Yeah, let's go. Line up. 3 of them. Let's go.
So it's amazing. That was, over 15 years ago, which is insane right now. And we think back to those, and I can remember, well, I know the first game we called. Do you know where we were for the first game that we did together?
I have no idea. The fact that you remember this is awesome.
So we were in Texas.
Okay.
And I don't know the game that it was, but I believe it was a Friday or Saturday night on ESPN.
Okay.
Because it was the week before, week 0 of the college football season.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting you for the first time. And I met you in the hotel lobby, and you were big into P90X at this moment.
Yeah.
And every analyst I'd ever met had kind of been like out of shape, whatever. You had to shake my hand. I'm like, this dude's freaking jacked. I was like, what is going on?
I remember P90X. You know what? Was that game in Houston, Texas? Was it Russell Shepard's team?
I don't think it was Houston. It may have been, but I mean, there was an Applebee's nearby. And so we called that game. And the funny part is I had never done football before, ever
Do that
in my life. And my mom, I spoke to her right before the game, and she goes, Just, do you know what you're going to say? And I go, I have no idea. I said, but when the red light goes on, I'll start talking. And next thing you know, you and I are partners for 3-4 years, doing every high school game, seeing some of the best prospects in all the lands, and then seeing them turn into NFL superstars.
Crazy.
It was quite the journey that we had.
It was. I think I probably said this to you, that doing those games will make you a better broadcaster because you don't have media guides. You don't have this influx of information coming in. You might be lucky to have a call with the head coach who may tell you that the returner is going to be number 24. And then we go on air and the returner is number 88. And you're trying to work your board. But because you have such little information, you had to come up with the information, right? And you had to prepare in that manner. And I always still to this day, I look back on those types of environments as a broadcaster as being because people may say, "Oh, dude, you're broadcasting high school games." I don't care if you're broadcasting a high school game or an NFL game. If that light goes on, you got a job to do, right?
Mhm.
Well, a lot of those, if I'm doing a college football playoff game or a New Year's Six game or what have you, well, we're getting flooded with the information, right? All you got to do is have the work ethic to digest it and do whatever your process is. But when you have to physically go out and come up with the content, that's a whole different animal.
I will say this, you were a godsend for me because you knew these high school teams and these high school players so well. And to this day, you're the only analyst in football that I've ever worked with who didn't have a board. You just took the roster, and that's how well you knew what was going on. You took the roster and you knew like everything about these guys. And I love that about you. I was like, man, this dude, he's freaking good. Like he's got his stuff down.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's funny you say that because I get people ask me to this day, why are you still doing the high school stuff? Like, why are you still doing the recruiting stuff? Because it's a niche and it's something that gives me an advantage when I do, uh, you know, college games every week, when I do UFL games, you know, when I provide content for different outlets that might prepare for the NFL draft. Because when you start to see these guys when they're freshmen in high school and they're 14 years old, and then you see them again when they're 15 and then 16 and then 17, by the time you're broadcasting a college game, you know who these guys are, right? Well, if you walk away from that, you're giving up this wealth of information that's kind of unique to what I do. And I've just always thought it was important to kind of stay on that course because there's been opportunities where I'm like, do I really want to stay with this? And then I start looking around at other outlets and I'm like, I don't see somebody else doing what I'm doing. So I kind of figured I better maintain that some level of value there.
So there are so many places that I can go with this. And I'm just going to ask this question because I've never asked it to you before. But with your background, knowing the high school players, knowing the college players, and the way the industry is changing, has any professional team come to you and said, hey, Tom, we think we could really use your skill set? What would you think about coming on and being in our front office?
So from getting back into professional football, no. Over the last 5 to 7 years, though, I've had overtures as we've started to see college football programs really morph into almost two different sects. You have the coaching side, and then the personnel, player evaluation, managerial side. And then with obviously the rise of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, there's not enough minutes or hours in the day for the coaches to handle all this stuff. You just can't do it. The model that, and really Nick Saban is largely credited with this. The model that has been morphing and growing and developing has been that pro personnel department model at the college level. So back in 2007, Nick Saban arrived at Alabama. The way they approached recruiting and player evaluation it had not been done yet at the collegiate level, in the sense that he hired a personnel staff. In the old days, the coaches were the personnel staff. They went through all the tape. They found the prospects. They went on the what Nick Saban did is he streamlined everything to eliminate the fluff and the junk so that never reached the coach's table. And by the time it did, then the coach knew exactly what he had in front of him. There was a trust level there because they'd all gotten into a room and decided this is what we're going to have at running back. And this is what we're going to have at linebacker. If he doesn't meet this criteria, don't give him to me. Those types of things. And so then that grew. And then you start having other personnel guys come off of that tree at Alabama and go to Georgia or Washington. And now it's morphed into there's a true general manager out there. And they're popping up all over college football. So to answer your question, yes, in that regard, because my background started in professional football, but I grew up in college football,
Right.
but at an entirely different time and place in terms of how the game and the profession was approached and how the ins and outs of it. Watching that from age 0 to 20 and then playing and then getting into coaching, but not going the college route, going professional football route. And then being involved in what I've been involved with the last 20 years and watched what college sports, but in my world, college football has turned into, I got to be honest with you, man, I have no idea why anybody in their right mind would want to be involved in college football right now, unless you are at a place where you have the resources, the financial arrangements, the history, the tradition, the budget, all of it to survive in a world where we are creating more and more of a gap between the haves and have nots. How's Kansas State supposed to compete with Georgia and NIL?
It's not just college football. It's college basketball. It's across the board.
Yeah, it's across the board. Yep.
I mean, it is. I'm with you. And you have so many people that you're tight with in the football industry. I've got people in other sports, and I talk to them, and they all say the same thing. They're like, just trying to survive. I'm trying to figure this out because it seems like every day it's changing so much. But let's go back to what you mentioned, your childhood. Your dad, Al, a college football coach, you were around the game from
Yeah.
basically birth. What was it like growing up with a dad who was a coach?
So, first and foremost, I was extremely fortunate because most coaches' kids and most coaches' families are, just by nature of the profession, forced to bounce around and move around a lot.
Mhm.
And I really didn't have to do that, fortunately, because at the two places, well, three places that my dad had been, he'd been very, very successful. So he stayed there for a while, especially during like my formative years. But I could still remember to this day being 3, 4 years old and running around the field in the practice field, running around in the locker room. Anybody who will be watching this who's ever been a coach's kid knows that you hang around in the equipment room all the time because that's where you're going to get the gear.
Yep.
Right? 5 years ago or 40 years ago, that was a reality for every coach's kid. But I'll tell you the thing that's interesting about it, because I watched the profession and and remember, this was all pre-internet. This was pre, for the most part, national exposure outside of your local print or radio or television media, right? And so the profession was simplified. You didn't have to deal with all these auxiliary elements. So when I grew up, all I saw was waking up early, going to work, recruiting, coaching the practice, watching film, coming home late. That was the coaching profession to me because that's just how it was. I was real fortunate though because my dad was one of those guys that was a work hard but work smart. Just because you say you're in the office at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday doesn't mean you're going to win four more games than the next guy. He was all about efficiency. And he was also about, hey, when you get the opportunity, go home and see your son play in a baseball game. Go home and see your daughter piano recital. Because most coaches miss all of that stuff,
Yep.
all of it. And so I grew up in an environment where, yes, football is important. Yes, it was paying the bills. Because I used to have people ask me all the time, well, who's your favorite college football team? And it was whoever my dad was coaching for because I knew they were putting food on the table.
Exactly.
Right. And so you never formed that allegiance that most fans have, like an Ohio State fan or, a USC fan, where from birth, that's just, they grew up with that. Well, that's not how it is for coaches' kids. And so um, I remember it was funny because one of the reasons why I love football so much is my dad made it a point early to make sure I realized that this was his profession and what he did. But if I didn't want anything to do with football and I wanted to go play the saxophone or I wanted to play basketball, what have you, that was fine with him. But if I wanted to be involved in football, he'd bring me to work. I'd go to training camp and I'd literally stay in the dorm with all the players. I'd spend like 30 days there with my dad. And that's where I would be. That's what I would do. And then I got into organized sports and I couldn't do that all the time, but I would still do it. Like I remember being sophomore, junior, senior in high school. And before our camp in high school would start, I'd report with the freshmen who at that time would come in and have like 4 or 5 days before the vets would come in. And I would go through all the drills with them. I'd go through individual, through one-on-one. I would like all of it. So you'd have the freshman quarterbacks coming in each class and I took equal reps with them. It was freaking awesome. And then when that was done, I'd go sit in all the meetings. So I can remember in 1991 or 92, Sean Payton was my dad's running backs coach.
What?
My dad actually gave Sean Payton his first full-time job.
Oh my gosh.
He's the running backs coach in the meeting, and Marshall Faulk's the running back, right? And here I am, I'm 16, 17 years old, right? Sitting in those rooms. And you start to see, like, I remember like the latter part of my dad's time at San Diego State, because I was in elementary school when he was at Arizona State. But I was much older and obviously much more aware. But um, like I really like guys like Kyle Turley, Ephraim Salam, Marshall Faulk, Leroy Glover, all of these guys that helped build and establish that program that went on to have big careers. I grew up with those guys. I was just around them all of the time. Um, so that part of it was really cool. And here's the best part to sum this up. So dads miss a lot in coaching, and they don't get to see a lot of things. My dad, I joke with him even to this day about this. He's 78 years old. So he got fired after 5 years at San Diego State, never had a losing season, bowl games. And when he got fired, he was the second all-time winningest coach there to Don Coryell. Okay. Now, in those days, Justin, when you got fired, especially at a mid-major like that, there was no $6 million buyout. There was no $2 million buyout. You had to go and get a job to put food on the table, right? And now, if you look at that job, whether it was Brady Hoke or whoever it may be, Rocky Long, all of those guys, there's big, big, big money involved in that. A lot of coaches miss that by about a 10 to 15 year window. My dad was one of them, right? And so, anyway, so he gets fired on a Monday morning. I am in junior college, my second year, a sophomore at Palomar College, with the #1 team in the country. I had just broken the national passing record in the country for all junior college quarterbacks in 1993. And I'm walking out of class, and I don't know, I was heading down to the locker room or something. And I look up and I can see my dad walking towards me. And it's Monday. I'm like, what are you doing? So we're getting ready to play for the national championship this coming Saturday, coming right up, 5 days from this moment. He walks up. We sit on this little retaining wall, and he says, well, they got me. I said, what are you talking? He goes, fired me. And I was like, they fired you? He goes, yep. Sorry, son, but this is how this deal goes. He goes, but the good news is I get to watch you play for a national championship on Saturday. And that was really the only game he probably saw in 2 years, unless he watched it on tape with me, because we played on Saturdays. He's playing on Saturdays. And so those types of moments, they stick with you. Fast forward to a decision that I had to make in 2004 on whether to stay in coaching or take this job that was being presented to me through ESPN. My wife, Tennille, who was pregnant with our son, and I had to make a choice. Could I be happy and content not coaching? Like, is personnel enough for me? Is player evaluation enough for me? And understand at this time, I was not in the position that I'm in now in terms of when I signed this. I was a behind the scenes ESPN.com employee. There was no television involved at all. All I was going to be doing is watching tape, writing reports, applying grades, and plugging it into a database. That's what I was doing. A lot of it was behind the scenes there was some behind the scenes stuff for TV shows, studio shows, but that was it. And so when I made that decision, I was like, okay, I think I can. Best decision I ever made, because I'm still heavily involved in football at multiple levels. I've worked out of my home for 20 years. I've been able to take my kids to school. I've been able to pick my kids up from school. My dad never got to do either of those two things. Now, I have similar challenges when it came to my son Quade in high school football, because I'm traveling to broadcast football. He's playing football. So I would always get to see a scrimmage and his first game, his 4 years in high school football, and that's all I ever saw. They won the state championship his junior year. I didn't get a chance to see it. And so, I remember those things vividly, but the ability for my wife to tap on my office and say, hey, what's your schedule looking like tomorrow morning? I've got to do this doctor's appointment. Is there any way you can take our daughter to?
Right.
Answer is, yeah, I can do that. I can figure out a way to manage that. And very few people in the sport have that. So when you asked me earlier, have I ever entertained looking at getting back in? That's the primary reason why I've said no. That right there.
That's awesome.
And it's and now, I mean, I still haven't seen my son play a college game, but I got the UFL coming up this weekend, starting on Sunday. Pumped about that, and I was able to get the third week or fourth week of the season off, so I can actually see him in his spring game actually play. And so that's going to be super exciting for me because I don't have that luxury, you know. So it's been it's been a great journey. It really has.
I mean, just think about some of the names you mentioned. The one that I think about is Marshall Faulk. You were around Marshall Faulk before people knew who Marshall Faulk was. When you saw him back when you were in high school,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts?
Well, he was a human blur. You couldn't see him. I mean, he was so graceful. Like graceful. And everything was effortless. And everybody's heard the stories about how, everybody wanted him to play corner, which is true. And he probably would have been a first rounder. All right. Well, at that time, and this is actually a funny story, I just mentioned him starting the UFL. The head coach of the Houston Roughnecks is a guy by the name of Curtis Johnson. He had been a long-time NFL assistant, but he had been in college football forever prior to that. Well, he was my dad's wide receiver coach. He's from the South. He was the primary recruiter that got Marshall Faulk to come to San Diego State. So the approach that Curtis Johnson and my dad made with Marshall was just to say, hey, listen, we're not opposed to you wanting to play running back. You want to play running back? We'll start you off right there. If that doesn't work, then let's talk about transitioning you to defense. But we're not going to sit here and say, no, we're not playing your running back. And at that time, all the Power 5 schools were saying that.
Right.
They wouldn't even entertain the notion. And that is, honest to God, the truth of how he ended up there. Now, the thing that's funny, so he shows up, and it's the summer before fall camp. I think he enrolled in the summer or what have you. He's a true freshman. He's about 5'10" and a half, about 185 pounds. And this is going to be hard for people to understand, but the way Marshall is built, if you lined up 100 professional athletes and you covered up all of their faces and you just put them out there in a pair of shorts, Marshall Faulk would be the last person that you would pick out. There's no way you would say that that's Marshall Faulk, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, he gets on the leg press and starts throwing up 1,000 pounds. And he's not even 100. He's 185 pounds, maybe. I mean, he just had this, he didn't look it, but he just had this freakishly, what I've heard a lot of guys older than me call country strong.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he was. And Marshall's a great story because he grew up spending the night in the boiler room of his high school. Didn't have floors at home. Didn't have. I mean, it was really, I mean, a fantastic story. So week 2 of his true freshman year, and San Diego State that year was coming off of a bowl game and had a returning running back by the name of TC Wright that was really good. He was all whack, I think, the year before. He was a senior, I believe. And then, do you remember Michael Pittman, the running back, played with the Buccaneers? Okay.
Yeah.
He had an older brother named Wayne Pittman, who was a true freshman that came in the same class with Marshall. So you've got this returning starting running back and TC Wright, really good player. Then you got Marshall and Wayne Pittman coming in. In the second week of the season, San Diego State's playing the University of Pacific, who, by the way, does not have football anymore. And that was the game that started it all because he rushed for 386 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Oh, my God.
91. But first of all, true freshmen weren't playing in 1991. Everybody redshirted, right? he goes and he bursts on the scene. By the end of the year, they close out the season against Miami. And that 91 Miami team was freaking loaded.
Every team in the 90s from Miami was loaded.
Yeah, I know, right? And he goes out, and that team had Michael Barrow, Jesse Armstead, Russell Merrill, all of those dudes. Not Russell Merrill, but I think they had a young Warren Sapp. I mean, all the guys. And Marshall rushes for 154 yards against Miami. So then, I mean, you're sitting here watching this guy going, wow. So then the following year, 1992, San Diego State is opening against USC in what was Jack Murphy Stadium back in the day. Then it turned into Qualcomm. I still call it the Murph. Against San Diego State on ABC, and you've got Willie McGinnis and Jason Sehorn on defense, and you've got Marshall Faulk. Now, this clip is on YouTube if you wanted to Google it. So I'm a ball boy for San Diego State, so I'm standing on the sideline. And back in those days, the hash marks in college football were wider. Now they're narrower. So like when you had a boundary and a wide side, like you had a boundary and a wide side. So San Diego State's got the ball on the right hash, formation all the way to the left. And they run outside zone into the boundary at Willie McGinnis. And Jason Sehorn is playing like the split safety off of the hash. And they run it into the boundary like there's no room.
Yeah.
And I can remember Marshall going and sticking his foot like right before the out of bounds line. And he goes down, and I swear to God, Justin, he goes down the sideline, and I could feel like a gust of wind. Like, feel like a whoosh, right? He leaves, and I've talked with Jason Sehorn about this. He leaves Willie McGinnis and Jason Sehorn flat-footed, standing still, look like they're running in quicksand. And gone, right? So I got to experience such just like ridiculously great moments. Like I remember being on the sideline, dude. I've told people this forever. The year Ty Detmer at BYU won the Heisman Trophy,
Yep.
I'm standing on the sideline. This is for the WAC championship. San Diego State has beaten BYU 45-17 in San Diego on Thursday night, and it's the middle of the third quarter. All right. And then Ty Detmer decides to turn it on. And you looked at Ty Detmer, he was 175 pounds soaking wet. You wouldn't recognize him if he walked into the door right now. And this dude starts throwing darts. And they tie the game 52-52. There was no overtime then. BYU gets the tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker, yeah.
Wins the WAC. And I was like, I just watched a guy like win the Heisman Trophy. And he did. He hadn't won it yet. I was like, he just won the Heisman Trophy. And it was ridiculous. And then he goes in the last game of the year at Hawaii and throws 6 interceptions.
You know, it's funny because I remember the year that RG3 won the Heisman. We were together. And
TCU Baylor on a Thursday night. We're sitting in a restaurant or a bar watching.
And you said he just won the Heisman.
I think I might have said that. Yeah.
No. You just said he just won the Heisman. He made some deep ball pass, and you're like, he just won that game. Just won the Heisman. And I'm like, what? He's like, he won the Heisman, and you were on it.
That was a 3-loss team too. That was
I know.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. And so, okay, we could talk about. I mean, I'd love to talk to you more about stories with Marshall Faulk, and we might do that. We might circle back to it. But the fact that you saw him then, and then you pointed out that Ty Detmer just basically won himself the Heisman with that comeback. I remember you doing it with RG3. You have a skill set of being able to evaluate, hence the DNR, Director of National Recruiting. What do you look for when you're evaluating talent?
I think the most under-asked question, and I'm not talking about other sports, but just in football. I don't care if it's at the high school or the collegiate level. You have to ask yourself and do everything in your power to find out the answer with as many confirmed sources as you can to this question. Does this player love football? A lot of people like football. A lot of people like the limelight. A lot of people like being on Instagram and TikTok. But in order to love football as a player, that means there has to be a portion of you that loves all of the things that nobody else wants to do. And if I can confirm that, I feel fairly confident that I'll be right on a guy. Now, and you've heard me say this, and I tell our staff this all the time. Don't be afraid to be wrong on kids, because you're going to be. Kids. I just said, they're kids. People are asking us to project what a 16-year-old kid is going to be in 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. And there are too many unknown variables to be able to pull that off. I mean, you're gonna miss. It's just the nature of the business. I mean, look at the National Football League, and you've covered that league. There's 32 teams. They all get one pick in the first round. And you know what? They miss on 50% of them. And that's unlimited resources, Justin. There's minimal excuses for not knowing about this or not knowing about that. Or if you do, letting ego get in the way and thinking you can fix it. That's the other thing that becomes a big problem in player evaluation is it's that whole adage, how many times does a guy have to show you what he is before you believe him? And so I'll give you a prime example of that. DJ Uyunglele, who for us was I think the 40th ranked player overall.
Wow.
But he was top 5 in the country, regardless of position, for every other outlet. And I'm a firm believer that quarterback play, I don't care if you're 6'5" or 6'1", I don't care if you run a 4.5 or a 4.9. Quarterback play is about decision making and accuracy. And DJ Uyunglele looked great, was never accurate. He wasn't accurate as a freshman. He wasn't accurate as a sophomore. He wasn't accurate as a junior. And he wasn't accurate as a senior. He had a strong arm, and he looked pretty, and he had everything that you wanted physically, but the ball's not going where it's supposed to be going. It doesn't matter. We probably took more heat publicly on our ranking of him than any other player I can remember in recent history. And I told our guys, I said, guys, don't cave to it. I'm telling you, I'll stand on the table for this one. And if we're wrong, I'm taking the heat anyway. So this is what we're going to do. And so I think you have to, in player evaluation, you have to have some things that you're not going to budge on. Like you have to have, and they may be different for different programs or NFL teams. You have a list of what you call critical factors, and some of them are physical attributes, some of them are mental attributes, some of them are a toughness attribute, some of them could be a competitive temperament attribute. And you're trying to confirm all of those things or uncover a red flag. But where I think you can start to get into trouble is if you get so enticed by 2 or 3 of these other things, but you're not seeing these other things over here that are just as important. And then you start to believe that you can fix the other things, or more often than not, you can't. That's where you get into trouble, and you're gonna widen the margin of error. So I think confirmation of certain things that you don't give on, that you stand your ground, and you say, and if you're going to be wrong, you're going to be wrong. But it's not because you cowered and got so enticed by one little area that it led you down a path where you're going to make a mistake. And I think I'll give you 2 other examples. I had an opportunity to play against and then later be involved in the evaluation and the signing of Kurt Warner with the Admirals. And you know that story. My dad was the head coach at the time, and nobody in the league wanted to sign it. And I was playing in the league at the time, and this dude was just, that league is really difficult for quarterbacks because you're going to get beat up. You have no run game to help you out, and you're throwing the ball into like a pinhole everywhere. Everything's happening 100 miles an hour. And this dude, the ball just kept coming out. Boom, 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 boom. And he was just throwing darts all over the place. Well, in those days in NFL Europe, in order to get a player, you had a free agent draft. And those were for players that were on the streets. They didn't have a job. They weren't in the CFL or the NFL or the Arena Football League. And then you had the allocation component, meaning that if an NFL team signed a guy and allocated him to NFL Europe, That's how the process worked. So you had a portion of your roster of allocated guys and a portion of your roster that you drafted. But if you wanted a guy to go directly to the team that you were coaching, you had to find a team that would be willing to sign. So, and then, by the way, of no risk to the NFL team, they don't have to keep them, right? So Kurt at this time is just lighting up the arena football. I mean, you turn on his tape, you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, and I didn't care if it was the Arena League or anything else. And my dad kept saying, could he do it? Do you think he could really do it? And I was like, yeah, I think he could really do it. So nobody in the NFL would touch him. And Kurt was smart because he's like, I can't leave my arena football job to take a chance in an NFL Europe draft. I got to at least have the ability to come out of NFL Europe and go to a training camp. It was the only way Kurt was going to do it, which was smart. Mm-hmm. So finally, the Rams, and Charlie Army was the GM at the time, and Dick Vermeil was the coach. And if you remember, they had just signed Trent Green in that big. Yep. So I'm a firm believer, my dad is a firm believer, that everything begins and ends at quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. So we get Jake Delhomme allocated to us from New Orleans. We finally get Kurt allocated from the Rams. And this is the thing that's interesting. There are some players that are really, really good practice players and not very good game players. And then there's guys that are exact opposite. So I'll give you a prime example. The worst high school practice player I have ever seen in 20 years was Jameis Winston, and there isn't even close. The worst. And then he would the games, and it was like boom, and everything started boom, 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 boom. Jake was a really good practice player and physically had the stature, tall, strong arm, good athlete, had that crafty Cajun spicy mentality. You just liked it. And Kurt was struggling to adjust to the outdoor game. He wasn't a very good player. And in those days in NFL Europe, you didn't have preseason games, but you practiced and scrimmaged against other teams like NFL teams do now.
Right.
So we'd have scrimmages, and all of a sudden, you start looking out of the corner of your eye, and this ball is just like a silent assassin. And you look over, and Kurt's just marching the team down the field. Ding, 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 ding. But nobody can rush him. He gets the ball out of his hand so quick. So I asked him, I was like, hey, what's the adjustment for you? He goes, actually, the game has slowed down. He goes, the bigger the field and the further away the people are, the slower the game is. He goes, and I don't think I truly realized it until I got back out here because I'd become so accustomed and trained in that regard. So I'd never forgotten that. And I thought that was really, really interesting. Anyway, long story short, we know that he ends up beating out Jake Delhomme. And I think they went 9-1, 8-2 or whatever. He comes back, and we all know the Kurt Warner story. The next year, Jake Delhomme goes back to NFL Europe, but this time he goes to Frankfurt, and he wins the NFL Europe Championship, comes into Carolina, and then we all know the end of that story, which was really, really cool. Fast forward a couple of years, we're in the very first XFL, and I'm the quarterbacks coach at Los Angeles. And we're trying to figure out, what are we going to do at quarterback? And we wanted guys that had played. We didn't want guys that had just been in a camp. We wanted somebody, if they had played for 5 years in the CFL, that meant something to me. If they had played for 3 years in the Arena League, that meant something to me. So we're bringing in 3 quarterbacks for a workout. One of them is Scott Milanovich, the former Maryland quarterback that played for a long time with the Buccaneers. And he had just been in NFL Europe at Rhine. And he's now a head coach, has been a very successful one in the CFL for the last 20 some odd years. The other guy was Steve Sarkisian, who had just been out of us in between CFL training camps. And the third one's Tommy Maddox, former UCLA first round draft choice. Well, Tommy had spent the previous 2 seasons playing in the Arena Football League for the New Jersey Red Dogs. And by the way, they were called that because they were named after Red Dog beer. No joke. Their logo on the side of the helmet. Remember Red Dog?
I don't, but it's only fitting with you wearing your Miller High Life shirt that this is all coming full circle.
Beer out here. So long story short, I turn on the tape of Tommy, and he is getting pummeled. Now understand, this is somebody that played in the NFL for like 7 years. He did not need to play football. He had an insurance company. He'd been really good with his money. He was a former first rounder. And he had always just had a bad taste in his mouth. And so he's like, I think I want to try and do this. I'm going to play. So he does. Well, he's getting pummeled, keeps getting back up, keeps getting back up, keeps getting back up. So now I take the tape to our offensive coordinator and like, hey, watch this guy for a minute. Because what I was seeing was a guy that kept getting hit, but kept getting the ball out. So long story short, we don't draft or sign Sark. He goes to be a GA for Norm Chow. We know the rest of that history.
Right.
We draft Scott Milanovich with the first overall pick in the XFL draft because we had what was called territorial schools back then. So it was a good idea to try and get people in the area who were fans of UCLA, USC, San Diego State, to have interest in the XFL games. So we could protect players, pull them out of the draft pool, and they automatically went on our roster. So Tommy comes and does the workout with us. We like him. We sign him. So he beats out Scott Milanovich. And so we go on and win the XFL championship. He signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the next year is the NFL Comeback Player of the Year and takes them to the AFC Championship game. And you sit there and you think about these guys in there, and I bring all these guys up because the path, everybody wants the path to be perfect. Everybody wants it to be easy. And the guys that make it generally don't come from the easy path. And I don't care if you're a high school guy or a college guy or you're somebody that had to go work at the Hy-Vee grocery store in Des Moines, Iowa, while you're playing for the Iowa Barnstormers. And the next thing you know, you're handing the ball off to Marshall Faulk.
Exactly.
And you're an NFL MVP. So I think that part of it's too, like sometimes in the evaluation process, I look at these, I said, where does this guy come from? Does he have a good support structure? One parent home, two parent home. Was he a latchkey kid? Who's he hanging around with? And then you start, asking the athletic trainer, the equipment man, the groundskeeper, all of these guys where you think nobody's watching. That's where you're going to find out a lot of information about how people treat other people. It's like Josh Allen mentioning the guy at Rich Stadium, called him by his first name. Like all of those sorts of things, they matter. And they matter in determining, I think, in any walk of life, but you're trying to project and avoid making a $50 million decision at the National Football League level. You got to avoid that enticement of being so enticed by a physical attribute that you ignore the one that probably is going to make the difference between whether a guy makes it or he doesn't.
I mean, it goes back to Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf.
Exact same thing. There wouldn't have been a GM or a coach in that draft that would have said Peyton Manning was more physically gifted than Ryan Leaf. Not even close. Not even close. And so, but again, you sit there and you get enticed and you're enamored and you're like, oh, wow, look how pretty that ball comes off that guy's hand, and then, but I'll tell you, man, some of those others, I think I call it the AAA athleticism, aptitude, and of course, I'm going to forget the third A now. Accuracy.
Like asshole.
It's aptitude and athleticism, I think, are three key traits for the quarterback position. But mental toughness, competitive temperament, what happens when things don't go your way? Like, I think Bryce Young is a great example of that. Like, Bryce Young had never, ever, as a player, faced adversity. He was the best guy at Mater Dei. He was the best guy at Alabama. He gets taken in the first round. And now something doesn't go his way. What's he going to do? And I will say this on the record, and I'm giving him a lot of credit for it. Bill O'Brien, I had the Sugar Bowl between Alabama and Kansas State. It was Bryce Young's last game. Did not opt out, right? Bill O'Brien was the offensive coordinator. And he said to me and our crew, he goes, Bryce Young is the smartest, hardest working quarterback I've ever coached. We looked at him, we're like,
Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, I was like, what? He goes, if I show up on a Tuesday and I don't have my ducks in a row, that kid will embarrass me in my own meeting. And he goes, he is a tireless worker. He has a thick skin. He's over-prepared. And those are all things you sit there and go, okay, all right, starting to check some boxes here, right? But you still don't know what's going to happen when a very public benching on a team that was just a mess
Terrible.
last year, terrible. And that kid could have gone one of two ways, probably no middle ground. And the way he went just completely, entirely changed their entire draft process of the Carolina Panthers because of how he played over the last, 4 or 5 games. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing because it completely changed the trajectory of not just his career and his life, but of the Carolina Panthers' next 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt. It's unbelievable. It is. It's unbelievable.
I mean, there was talk for a while in the Carolina area. Is there a team worse off right now than the Carolina Panthers? And maybe with that benching and the way that Bryce Young responded, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to this franchise.
Yeah, yeah. And really, to be honest with you, from a self exploration standpoint for Bryce Young, it put him in his first time, probably in his life, where he had to sit down and make a conscious decision and say to myself, what am I going to do here? Am I going to pout? Am I going to shut it down? Right? What, or am I going to rise to the occasion, learn, and become an entirely different player as a result of this? And nobody knew, right?
And this upcoming year is going to be a very telling year for him. Does he
No.
pick up where he left off?
Does he pick up where they left off? He's got the entire offensive line back. It changes obviously who they'd be drafting, all of those sorts of things. And you're right, year two in the offense, and hopefully they'll get some more weapons around him, which they need. Uh, but yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. But again, I can cite those countless examples going back to all the way back high school, and I look at a lot of these guys now. Like some of them, I'm doing television with. I mean, EJ Manuel was in our very first Under Armour All America game, right? It's like you're sitting there watching these guys. Where does the time go? And yeah, it's crazy, man. But what a wild and fun profession.
It's okay. Let's thinking about weird things that happens. Kurt Warner gets the chance to start because of an injury,
Yeah.
and then he basically Wally Pips and Lou Gehrig, and he never gives up that position. And they go on to be the greatest show on turf. They win a Super Bowl. He's playing with Marshall Faulk. Have you ever had the opportunity to have those two guys in the same room, or even just talk to them about each other and link up the history with each other, which with each guy that you have?
You know what? I haven't, and that is a really good question. It would be something fascinating to do, because and I've got to know both of them, obviously, but I knew one of them in a very different time of my life than the other, right? Um, and it brings up another point, and again, so much of everything in life is right place, right time, taking advantage of the opportunity. Like, what if that Rams team, what if they weren't the Rams? What if they were a dog? What if they had no players and they were just they're going to have a top 5 selection in next year's draft? Instead, this all of these stars aligning for him, and he's got Orlando Pace at left tackle, Marshall Faulk, Oz Hakeem, um,
Isaac Bruce.
Isaac Bruce, and Torrey Holt. That's who he's walking into the huddle with. I mean, just crazy. Like, I mean, think about all the things that have to happen. That confluence of this piece of that piece, but it's so true. Like, I mean, look at the progression and the development of what happened to Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love because of where they were drafted. And remember those cameras being on Aaron Rodgers? I mean, the sky was falling, right? I mean, you're sitting, and then you don't play right away. You're on a good team. You're on a playoff team. You get to sit back, no pressure. You're watching, you're seeing, and then the opportunity comes, and you're on an established great franchise. I mean, would you rather do that as opposed to go somewhere where you're going to get thrown to the wolves and get your tail kicked? I mean, it's just, again, timing and the placement and where you're spotted means so much.
Yeah, and Luke's, I actually think about this Green Bay team. when they had the option of either extending Brett Favre or going with Aaron Rodgers, I thought they were crazy not to bring Brett Favre back because I thought they were on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl. And instead, they trusted their gut and what
Yeah.
they saw in Aaron Rodgers. And then you fast forward, and they do the same thing with Jordan Love. And people are like, I mean, it is so rare in sports, whether it's college or professional sports, where you get front office people who actually trust their gut and forget about the outside noise,
Yeah.
and they make the right choice.
And you know what? Probably more often than not, if people would just do that, they'd come out on the right side more so than you're right. And especially now because there's so much public scrutiny because everything's out there. Even in recruiting, I remember. Here's a great one. I'll name off. Okay, Marshall Faulk, Kyle Turley, Ephraim Salam, Leroy Glover, Darnay Scott. Okay, let's just say all five of those guys were being recruited by San Diego State. Now, not 1990 and 91. Not one of them would have signed at San Diego State.
Not
Because
even close.
you can't hide guys. It's impossible. They're all going to camp. They all know each other. They're all on the internet. The information is all readily available. Remember when Tyler Bray was the quarterback at Tennessee?
Yeah.
Tyler Bray was from California and had originally committed to San Diego State. If that was the 1990s, he would have never gone to Tennessee because they wouldn't have known about it.
Or take it one step further. Maybe he'd go for 1 year. And now
Yes.
with the transfer portal, people
Yeah.
see him and they say, oh, well, we're going to offer him at SC.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah. It's just dude, this world we're in college football right now it's freaking amazing. It's unbelievable. What chaos.
It's uh, the word, the polite word is it's messed up.
Oh yeah, that's about as polite as you can put it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about some of these players and about what the Green Bay Packers have done by trusting their gut. And so many people are so afraid of trusting their gut because of the outside noise, because of TV and radio personalities and rankings and this and that. You talked about what you guys did with DJ, and you said, no, we're sticking with it. This is where we think he is. Where does that confidence come from? Because confidence, hang on one second. You got an incoming call?
You there, bud?
Yeah, it said it stopped recording because you were at an incoming call.
We good now? Can you start at top?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Sorry.
Oh no, all good, all good. So we talk about, the Packers and trusting their gut. Why is it so hard for people to do that? Because you did that with DJ in your group. Why do people fall back into this pattern of saying, well, you know what? He's a 5-star.
Yeah.
We're gonna take him.
Right. I think it's because of the pressure that's applied now in terms of whether it's boosters, alumni, financial resources, a collective. You want to have as high of a ranked recruiting class as you possibly can. And all the labels that are now placed on these kids. And that's why, to be honest with you, I have a tremendous amount of respect for FCS and group of 5 level coaches and even some lower tier power 4 schools that don't have the resources of an Alabama or a Georgia, an Ohio State, because they're not necessarily getting the play right away guy. They're having to make far more of a projection. And the more of a projection you're making, the more risk there is that it's not going to pan out. Right. So they're looking at a guy and they're saying, you know what? We think he gets that guy in the weight room and we feed him 3 squares a day. And we like his mentality. We like his work ethic. We know he's a tough guy. Maybe he's going to grow another inch, and maybe he's going to add another 35 pounds. We think by the time that guy's a redshirt sophomore, he's going to be a really good player for us. Whereas who they're competing against, they're getting that player, and they're expecting that guy to come in and play right away. So because they're checking more boxes earlier, you're guessing a little bit more. Not guessing, but you're having to project more. And I feel for those coaches because when they do that and they're right, they're gone. Players are gone. You can't retain them because how are you supposed to be able to financially keep them from being lured away? And, I'll give you a prime example. Chris Kleinman at Kansas State, who is a tremendous football coach, but like the ideal football coach for that job. And the approach that he started to take in NIL was, why would we take what we do have in NIL and go out and try to lure this shiny toy under the tree to our place where we're probably not going to win that battle, when we could take what we do have and reinvest it in the players that we have on our own roster that have performed to a high level, that we know, that we can trust, and that want to be here. And then we'll go recruit at the high school level, and maybe we'll bring in a portal guy here or there that's on a lower cost level that fits who we are. And that's kind of how we'll manage and massage our roster. But I mean, not everybody's doing that, and you look at everybody is always on Dabo Sweeney's ass all the time. And I've defended him because I believe that he's right in the notion that there might be 2,700 kids in the transfer portal. You're freaking Clemson. How many of those kids are better than what you're playing with? Why would you go into the transfer portal and get a player that's not as talented, doesn't make you better, just because everybody wants you to, as opposed to going the high school route, which they've traditionally done, and then you go and you identify who you want. And by the way, that is a coaching staff that will not bend on what their criteria is. And he's taken a lot of public heat for that. So, but he doesn't have to take transfer portal guys. They're getting the 4 and 5 star guy, and they're developing them, and they're panning out. They're staying within the program. They have few departures there, but they've got resources within the institution and the organization to maintain happiness and a comfortable way of life for those kids, and the kids want to stay. That's huge. You look at like a Georgia, an Alabama when Nick Saban was there. They weren't going out and bringing in 10, 12 champs. They don't need to. Because the other part in all of this, which is the biggest problem in college football, I don't care what anybody says, tampering is the biggest problem in college football. And it probably is with the other sports, but I'm not familiar with those other sports. Because what happens is a guy will be a high-profile player, really good player. Maybe he's been very, very productive, right? That kid knows he has a market value. And the chum's in the water and the sharks are circled. So by the time he gets talked into getting the portal, the deal's done. He's not going into the portal as a free agent. Right. He's going into the portal to sign with the next team because the deal's already been done because he's been tampered with. So the ones that are really good in the portal, this leads me my point, the ones that are really good in the portal are already spoken for. They've been tampered with. The rest of those guys in the portal, the danger, and I don't want to generalize here, but you do have to ask yourself one simple question. Why is the guy in the portal? Has he been a problem where he was at? Is he a bad locker room guy? Was he non-productive when he played? Well, there could be a variety of things. And again, you have to identify what those are and then weigh the risk on whether or not you're willing to bring an element into your program that maybe you're not overly familiar with. And that's why you talk to more and more coaches. They say, if we haven't had an established relationship with that kid, if we haven't had, we didn't recruit that kid or we didn't know that kid's family, we're not touching them. We're not going anywhere near them.
So you were basically a Renaissance man. You were before your time. If I'm not mistaken, you were at what, 3 schools?
Yeah.
So what's the deal, Lugs? Were you a problem? What's going on?
So my path was a very interesting one. Number one, I was not recruited out of high school at all, right? So I had to go to junior college and prove myself. Played 2 years there, won a national championship, and got heavily recruited, right? Then I go to Georgia Tech, transfer in there, and they've got a returning starting quarterback. And I knew that when I transferred there. I beat him out. That did not go very well. We were a terrible football team. They have a coaching change. So now George O'Leary comes into the fray. And I never redshirted. So I had a year of eligibility, but I also had a redshirt year, then a year of eligibility. And in those days, if you were going to transfer, you could transfer once, but you had to transfer down if you wanted to play right away. So the situation at Georgia Tech it was two things. Number one, it wasn't a great team dynamic, and I was probably every bit to blame, as much to blame for that as anybody else. The guy that I had beaten out was a really popular guy and a great dude. And by the way, talk about awkward. They roomed us together during
Oh
the
my God.
which we had to make they had to make the decision. And and so but anyway, so it wasn't meant to be. It didn't work out. And then I transferred to play for the legendary Roy Kidd and go to Eastern Kentucky, and I got to beat out another guy there. And this time I wasn't there for spring football. I had to do it in camp, and did so, and we were really good and made to the FCS playoffs. And then I had a wonderful career, and I don't regret any of it. But it's funny because I will hear when I'm critical of the transfer portal things and windows. I'm often critical because if you look at the number of guys in the portal, the vast majority of them have not even been on campus for 15 or 18 months. They don't even give it a shot to compete. They don't even give it a shot to see how things are going to play out. Stick around, gut it out. When things don't go their way, don't just pick up your ball and go home. People are like, well, you did that. I'm like, yeah, guess what? I had to beat out 3 dudes at 3 different schools and knew I had to do that before I went there. So don't talk to me about competing and not being willing to compete. But what we have in today's era is we've made it so easy for them that if something doesn't go your way, okay, well, just there's the door. Go ahead and take off, and no repercussions for you. Don't worry about that. And then people will say, well, coaches can leave all the time. Yeah, they got buyouts.
Right.
And by the way, they're full-grown adults with undergrad degrees and master's degrees who are working professionals. You're a college student. We're comparing those two things, and that doesn't compute to me. If we want to sit here and talk about coaches and movement and this and that, there's money involved there. You guys want to have name, image, and likeness? All right. You want to have the transfer portal? Then there's going to be a price.
Right. And we've gotten away from it. It's not name, image, and likeness what we're doing right now. It's pay to play.
Absolutely pay for play. And what's made it sickening is it's pay for play at the high school level now. And name, image, and likeness was never intended to be involved at the high school. The name, image, and likeness was for the current college level player who had generated value by whatever means to be able to earn based off of that value. And if somebody wanted to invest in that player, great. Somebody wanted to invest in or market that guy, great. But it was never intended to be, hey, we're going to outbid you, and you to get you to come here. And now we're doing it at the high school level. And just like I used to joke all the time, I'd say, who's more disappointed in DJ Uyunglele? Dabo Sweeney or Dr. on the investment side? Right. So, and I think that's the other thing that gets glossed over. And everybody I've been accused of being the get off my lawn guy. And I swear I am not. What I am, though, is pro earning it. I'm not for handouts. I'm not for, just because you are this guy, you think you're due this or owed this. When I hear all of these values out there, well, this guy signed a 2-year deal for $8 million. Like, what has he done that shows he's worth $8 million, number one? And everybody says, well, the NFL has free agency. Yeah, but the NFL has a collective bargaining agreement and public records of what everybody's making. So when so-and-so says Saquon Barkley is the highest paid guy or the highest producing player here, here's the lowest producing player here, we think you're somewhere in here and you have the data to prove it. We don't have that in college athletics. So some agent, some runner, or a player sits there and says, well, I'm worth this and I'm not playing for less than this. And somebody's willing to pay it? Like, what if all of the college teams just said, no, we're not doing that. Not until we collectively bargain, not until we come to an agreement.
I would love it. I would love to see this somehow be corralled, and I think there are ways to corral it. And we're almost getting off topic because we could go down this rabbit hole right now.
This is a 4-hour conversation, bro.
Oh, seriously. No, I mean, it might be even more than 4 hours, okay? But what I want to go back to is I did a game this past year with Trent Dilfer as the head coach. And I know that recruiting visits are a big topic for high school kids, college kids, and this and that. You went on a recruiting visit, I believe, to Fresno State.
Did you talk to him?
Trent Dilfer was, I believe, your host.
It was.
What happened on that visit, Lugs?
Well, as things tend to happen on official recruiting visits, it's kind of what happens in Fresno stays in Fresno. And in every other city you visit, when let's just say you have that 48-hour time, and it is that host's job to show you the best possible time that you can have. So, there might have been a libation or two that had been consumed, and this is going to be one of the grossest stories ever, but it is a true story. Trent will confirm it. So, but if memory serves me correct, we are at a TGI Fridays, and it is late, and we've been having quite a few. And he is standing at the bar, and understand he was the king cheese, dude. Like that Fresno State team he was on had ballers and a bunch of, and of course he ended up being a first round draft choice. So he's got a beer bottle in his hand, and he's leaning against the bar, and he's got another bottle in his hand on the side that he's leaning against the bar. I'm standing on this side of him, so I don't see that. I can't see that. So I'm just seeing this shoulder. And I see he's got a bottle here. And I said, hey, can you give me another one? He goes, oh, I just ordered this one. He hands it over to me. I said, hey, thanks. So unfortunately for me, it was his chew spitter. And the night was, however you want to say, either so good or so bad that I did not even realize it at the time I did.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So I get back to the hotel room, and I lay down, and we've all had that spinning room moment.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Well, then I have a vomit burp. I have a burp, and all of a sudden it comes up,
No.
and I can taste it. It was almost like a Hollywood movie. It was like the whole night went fast forward, rewind, and then did the screeching sound to right when I went nope, 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 and then fast forwarded right back to where I was. And let's just say there was some projectile vomiting. That was not a pretty hotel room the very next day. And I had to have breakfast with Jim Sweeney, the head coach, like 9 o'clock in the morning that next day. And yeah, that is a true story.
And needless to say, you did not go to Fresno State.
Not go to Fresno. You know what? It's funny because at the time they were really good. They were ranked. And the only reason why I probably didn't is along with Trent leaving, they were losing all five of their starting offensive linemen at one time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if that's going to be the best possible spot. But yeah, I'm telling you, man, recruiting visits used to be a lot different than they are now.
Oh, the good old days.
The good old days, man. I remember, listen, I took a visit to San Diego State between my freshman. So I was an academic qualifier, meaning that if you choose to go to junior college, you're not required to get an AA degree. So I had met the requirements coming out of high school. I went to junior college not because I wasn't qualified academically. I wasn't getting recruited. I needed to prove myself. So we had a great year my freshman year, and I had thought about leaving. I took a visit to NC State, took a visit to San Diego State. My dad's still the coach there. And the middle linebacker and the starting quarterback are my two hosts. And they lose me. Like lose me. And I know what I'm doing, and I know where I'm at because I know the campus and I know the whole layout, but I don't know there's no cell phones. Like, so basically I lost them as much as they lost me, but I wasn't responsible for them.
Right.
And David Lowry, who was the quarterback of that team, I think he was a 3-year starter. He loses me. So like he's freaking out. I mean, freaking out.
Well, it's not just that he's lost his recruit. He's lost the head coach's son.
Yep. Yeah. But all's well that ends well. Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, Lugs, this is so much fun. Just going down memory lane and thinking about things. And then I think about some of our adventures. Again, as we talked about at the very beginning, the Miller High Life and always going to a Chili's or an Applebee's afterwards, or doing a game in the very cold weather. And what was your nickname for me?
God, I've drawn a blank. What was it?
Delicate Daffodil.
Oh, yeah, I've applied that to me. And let me tell you something. It's so funny because a few years after you and I worked together, I had moved into that field analyst.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, that was karma, me calling you that. Because I went through a run for about 2 to 3 years. I could not get out of a hurricane. I could not get out of a tornado. I could not get out of a snowstorm. I could not get out of an ice storm. Everywhere I showed up, there was some natural disaster catastrophe happening in our.
Guess what? Guess what? Karma's a bitch. Okay.
Right.
You made fun of me for wearing gloves in an outdoor booth in Michigan when it's snowing outside. You're like, you delicate daffodil. I'm like, dude, I can't feel my hands.
Was that Central Michigan?
Yes.
Oh, that's a cool stadium. But how do you have the TV booth not enclosed in Michigan?
I know. And then we did a game, an FCS game in Montana.
On the roof.
My only time ever in Montana. And we'd have to go outside on the roof for the on-camera open. And then we'd run back into the booth.
How great is that stadium? That place is awesome.
Oh, awesome place.
Unbelievable place. Oh, yeah. That's the thing, too. Like, you start to, the moment you think you believe that you're entitled to be spoiled with some of the assignments that we've all grown into now, and you think back and like, we didn't even bat an eye. We didn't even care. Right?
Dude, how about our trip to go do a game at the University of Idaho?
That's right.
And what's that?
The Kibbie Dome.
The Kibbie Dome. But
Lewiston, Idaho.
Yes.
Greatest bars that you and I have ever been to.
Yes. So I remember, oh my God, I'm so happy you said this. So we have a production meeting. We're going to meet at like 6. I get a text from you saying, dude, I'm at the bar. This is my type of bar. So I'm walking from my room to that bar and I see it says karaoke tonight at 9. So I walk in, you're like, dude, how great is this place? I'm like, dude, they're having karaoke at 9. And so we stayed, we had our meeting, yada, yada, yada. 9 o'clock comes around and somebody goes up to sing. I go up and the year was 2009. And the reason I remember this was because the Yankees had just won the World Series and it was their 27th World Series. So I got up there to sing Frank Sinatra's New York, New York. And I sang it. I thought I crushed it, came back, high five with you. And you said, hey, you going to sing with me? I go, what are you singing? He goes, and you go, the Jewish Elvis, Neil Diamond. I was like, hell yeah, I'm singing with you. Dude, we brought the house down.
Oh, heck yeah, we did. Because you get everybody going when you sing Neil Diamond in karaoke. Oh. The line, it's like they stop what they're doing. They're like, hey, wait a minute, I know that song.
I was jumping on tables the night before our broadcast. I didn't drink it all, but I was jumping on tables singing, so good, so good, so good. And then I don't know if you remember this part. After the game the next night, we go back to the bar. And some guy comes up to us and says, hey, are you guys going to sing again tonight?
I do not remember that. Are you?
I swear to God that happened.
It probably did. Oh, my. Remember that trip? I mean, it ain't easy to get there.
No, it's not. And Lewiston, Idaho smells horribly because the paper mill.
Yeah, the paper mill's there. You're right.
I walked outside. I was like, oh, my God, it smells like shit out here. What is going on?
Yeah, hey, Justin, it's the paper mill down the street there.
Yeah, God, I didn't realize paper smelled that bad. This is terrible. All right, Lugs, this is a moment in the show that I like to call This Just In. Okay. All right, so this is where I'm going to throw some questions out to you. Just want your quick, honest answers on them. Yep.
All right.
Best prospect you've ever seen?
On physical ability, Jadeveon Clowney.
We did his game together, too.
Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm. Rock Hill, South Carolina.
The opening game of the season, right against Northwest.
It was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. Yeah, on just physical attributes, it's Jadeveon.
Okay. Player that you missed on.
Player that we missed on. That ended up being a bust, or that we were wrong and he ended up being really good?
You were wrong. He ended up being really good.
My God, there's been dozens. No, I mean there has. I mean that's part of the deal. I'm drawing a blank on it though. To be honest with you, like there's not some where it's like we've been off or we didn't have somebody ranked as high as we should have, but like a come out of nowhere, never be recruited. I guess you'd have to say Cam Ward.
Okay.
That would probably be the best one. Because we had him drawn up, like we had him written up. We just projected him poorly.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably Cam Ward.
All right. Guy you stood up for and panned out.
You know what? I actually have more of the other way around. The guys that we stood up for to say we're not ranking him that high.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give you two of those first, and then I'll give you another one. Number one, quarterback Tate Martell. Remember Tate Martell?
I don't.
He had high-profile quarterback, highly recruited. He had been a multiple committer to schools, and that's always a red flag.
Yep.
Then he goes to Ohio State, doesn't last, eventually goes to Miami, doesn't last, and never to be seen again. The other one was defensive tackle Khalil McKenzie out of De La Salle High School in Northern California, went to Tennessee, and some people had him as the number one ranked overall player in the country. I think we had him as a top 40 player in the country near the back end, and I don't even think I liked that because he was a two-gap defensive tackle who couldn't play past first and second down. Like, what are we doing here? He was 6'3", 345 pounds. But that's what happens in the recruiting deal. You get these internet guys and they grab onto them and then they overinflate them. And the thing is, then what happens is just this conversation we've been having this last hour is you start to believe it, right? You fall into that trap. Okay, so a guy that nobody else was really on that we hit. I would say early on it would have been maybe Jackson Dart.
Okay.
We were on Jackson Dart really, really early when he wasn't really being recruited, and it was because of COVID. So that's probably not a great example of one. But this is a really hard one. Oh, I don't know if I have a good answer for that one, Justin.
All right, that's fine. I mean, I did Jackson Dart. I remember at Ole Miss a couple years ago, there was that debate of who was going to get the start, and Jackson Dart got the start. I'm like, this dude can play.
Yeah. The other guy, remember, was Luke Altmaier, who's now the starting quarterback at Illinois.
Yeah, I was like, Jackson Dart, they've got something there. All right, Luke, I know you are a movie buff.
Yes.
Favorite movie of all time?
You see that?
No.
Jaws.
Really?
Yeah, look. See? Jaws is the greatest film of all time.
Okay, and for those of you who don't know, Lugs always wears cowboy boots and always has a big belt buckle. All right, there we go. See? Favorite.
My belt buckle is? You'll remember this. Hold on. Big Sky Brewing Company.
Yes.
Moose Drool. Remember?
Yes.
Moose Drool?
Yes.
There you go. Purpose either. That was totally random today. You're lucky I have pants on, and the only reason why I do is because I'm taking Tennille out for a date tonight.
Well, thank God you had pants. I forgot to tell you that those are mandatory. So your favorite pair of cowboy boots?
I have a pair of like smoke blue ostrich. I've probably worn them around you before. They are tight. They are good looking. Did you know I've never owned a pair of dress shoes ever in my entire life?
I did not.
Ever.
So at a black tie affair, you just go black boots.
Dress boots, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your favorite holiday is Halloween.
Yes.
I mean, you are like Buddy the Elf, but for Halloween.
Yeah.
Best Halloween costume you've ever had.
Probably either my Batman or my Deadpool. Like I got here. Stay right there. Here you go.
Have you worn that yet on air for a game?
No, I haven't worn it yet on air, which they used to let us do, as you well know. Now we don't really get those freedoms anymore to do that. But I have a bunch of different costumes because, as you know, my daughter is a patient at Shriners Children's Hospital. So I'll wear the costumes. I got a Captain America, a Deadpool, and a Batman, and I'll wear them to the hospital to go see all the kids.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my biggest regrets is that you and I never got to dress up for a game on Halloween as Dumb and Dumber.
Would have been great. Powder blue and orange tuxes.
Dude, it would have been absolutely epic.
Epic. No doubt.
Oh, gosh. Lugs, man, this was a blast. Awesome stories. Love talking to you. I miss you. I can't believe it's been so long. I actually have the picture of you and I on the first ever football game we worked together.
You do?
I do. I'll send it to you.
Grab it and text it to me?
I will.
Wait, hold on. We can't go without telling the story about Roger the Elf.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you said this. I'm so happy you said this. Okay.
All through.
All right. So, I mean, it's got to be 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
I just moved down to Charlotte and we were doing some studio stuff at ESPNU. And you said, hey, Tennille, your wife has to go in for surgery tomorrow morning. Any chance you'd mind coming over, watching the kids because we got to leave early? I said, yeah, of course. No problem at all. So you said, all right, well, Quaid usually wakes up around 6:30. Keaton will wake up a little bit later. She usually comes down naked, but we told her she has to have clothes on because you're there. I said, thanks, appreciate that.
True.
So all of a sudden, it's like 6 a.m, and Quaid comes into my room, and he's like, Mr. Justin, there's a problem. I'm like, what's wrong? And I'm like, woken up, like I just got into your house at midnight. I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, you got to call my dad. I'm like, no. Quaid, what's wrong? He's like, Roger the elf has fallen. And I'm like, what? Like Roger the elf? And he's like, quick, come here. And so I'm going with him, and I see this elf is not where it's supposed to be. He's like, you got to call my dad. So I text you.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't call your dad right now. But I'll text him. So I go pick him up. He's like, no, you can't touch it. I go, no, it's okay. I can. I'm Jewish. And so, so the rule was that if you touch the elf, that you would not get your Christmas presents, right? Santa would not bring the presents.
Yeah.
Well, I then text this to you and you say, okay, go to the kitchen, get a pair of tongs, tell him it's going to be okay, and you can move it back up. I go, oh, don't worry. I told him I'm Jewish. I can move it with my hands. And you were like, oh my God.
That was so great. And I thought I had this brilliant idea with the tongs, and you've already given him a lesson on heritage.
Dude, I've told that story so many times over the years.
Oh, wait. Dude, it's a great story.
It was so good. I'm so happy you brought that up. And now, I mean, freaking A. Like, I remember being at your house and I was throwing a ball with Quaid, and I was like, he could spin it. And you were like, nah, he's going to be a long snapper. And he would work on it. And here he is now, a college football long snapper. And then Keaton, who, I mean, you said was going to come down naked, and thank God she had clothes on. Now she's what, 17 or 18?
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
It's insane.
It is insane. Yeah. So you better get busy.
Well, at least I got married, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just playing catch up at this moment.
Baby steps.
Baby steps, okay? I waited, and now I'm going to age overnight.
There you go.
Lugs, again, man, thank you so much for joining us. We got to get together soon. It's been too long.
All right, man. Thanks for having me,
Tell
bro.
the family I say hi.
I will. Same to you.
All right. Thanks, brother.